Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast.
Welcome along to episode 56 of Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast. We're back again. It's me, Dave D.
And me, Dave B.
We're quite excited at the moment, myself and Dave. We've got lots of interesting things lined up for the months ahead, haven't we? It's hard to keep a lid on it, but we will just for now.
Yes, it just about. We can tease that we have a big announcement coming up for the next episode, which I imagine will probably trail a little bit beforehand. But for now, it's business as usual, but the times they are changing.
They are. And it should be an exciting 12 months ahead. It's business as usual for now. What does that business involve on this episode then, Dave?
Got quite a heavy Welsh flavour this episode, hasn't it?
It's funny how things work out, isn't it?
Yeah, so our main guests are Craig and Ian from Axeljack Brewing, based in Wales. They're in the stages, I think, of going to more what we would call crafty, but they're doing slightly more traditional, but still a bit of a twist, modern twist, I guess would be the way to describe it at the moment.
And I'm certainly encouraged by their cans, because if you can tell whether a brewery is craft or traditional just from its can, it looks like they're on the right track.
Definitely, it's not just a traditional brewer who's trying to do craft.
We have also got Sam from the Copper Beach Brewing Company with the brewer's wife. We've got Tried and Tested. We've got Hype or Tripe. Now, this is a good one. This should be really interesting because it features a beer. It's a real big player on the craft beer scene, isn't it, this beer? But some twists on it. It's
Elusive's Oregon Trail, which has been going now many a year and is regarded by a lot of people who like a West Coast IPA as the best that the UK can offer for a West Coast IPA. But Andy at Elusive has changed it up a bit. He's released 3 versions of it, a doubled up version, and then a red IPA, double IPA, and a black double IPA, and we will be sampling 2, perhaps all 3.
We'll see how the mood takes us, see how we're doing by the end of the episode, which is when that will come along. And lots more along the way, I'm sure, lots of interesting chat and news, but we'll kick it off as we always do with our feature that we call Brew to Meet, and that's where we get hold of a beer from a brewery we've never sampled before, give it a road test, and tell you all about the brewery. What have you got for us this time, Dave?
So this is where we begin our Welsh adventure for the episode, because my beer comes from Guypool Brewing, are based in Wales. I will embarrass myself and try and say where they are based.
Oh, go on, please do.
Pantglas, then there's a very Welsh word, Corwin. See, Guypool himself, Eric, who you will hear from shortly, he says they live in a barn on a hillside in rural North Wales. But we've been doing this a few years now. And we're always amazed when we come across breweries that have sort of, maybe going 5 or 6 years and we think, how did we miss them? Well, Eric's been going 10 years, so I don't quite know how we missed him.
And also, as you'll find out, he's not a Welshman.
No.
His background in brewing is from somewhere completely different. You'd think he would stand out, wouldn't you? But for some reason, he's not been on our radar. Well, he is now. That's the good thing. That's the good news.
As Eric will explain, because of his heritage, is very tuned into one specific style of beer, and that is lager. And he prides himself on all the various styles of lager that are available. And when I got in touch with him and said, well, is there any particular beer you'd really like me to try to talk about? And he said, go for the Bock, because it's a style that doesn't necessarily get as much love. He just wanted to explain what you could do with a Bock. So I've got Guypool Brewing Bock. And there, I have actually got a Daftaboutcraft in the fridge, an anniversary edition, which is even stronger. But this weighs in at 6.5%. And when you hear Eric's description of it, you can't wait to try it, because the flavours that he mentions, I'm not going to give it away. I want to see what I get.
When you think of these sort of beers, you're thinking Germany, aren't you? And you're thinking our friends at Schlenkler, who we had on the podcast. So it'd be really interesting to see how this matches up to some of the beers you've tried from them.
It smells of that yeasty, strong lager, if you know the sort of smell I mean.
What's it taste like then?
There is quite a bit going on in that, actually. There's a bit of bitterness to it. There's almost a bit of a cigarette ashy bitterness, not in a bad way. That sounds really bad, but I don't mean it like that, because when we talk to Schlenkler, their thing is beach smoking. It's not smoked.
You don't mean that it's like somebody's poured the contents of an ashtray into your glass, not at all.
No, 100% not. It's sort of that leathery, smoky taste, but it's not smoked.
Yeah, and these are all flavours and aromas you'd expect, in fact.
There is some caramel. It also would lend itself slightly to going towards more of a West Coasty sort of, not quite piney, but it's heading in that direction. It's got an awful lot going on. That's just for me, and I imagine when it warms up a little bit, it's going to develop a bit more again.
I'll tell you what then, why don't we go and listen to what Eric's got to say? Tell us all about it while it's warming up there.
Hello, this is Eric Geipel from Geipel Brewing in North Wales. We specialize in lagers, but we're a production brewery, meaning we don't have a physical shop or a tap room. But I should shout out to Story Beers in nearby Bala, who stock all of our beers and have become our de facto tap room. I'd like to quickly tell you about the brewery's background, our philosophy, and one of the beers that exemplifies what we're all about. First off, I'm not actually Welsh. I grew up in Ohio, but my ancestry is mostly German. So I traveled to Bamberg about 15 years ago, tracing my family roots, and that's where I became obsessed with the unbelievably great traditionally brewed lagers there. So very different from the mass-produced lagers, which was more or less all you could find in Britain at the time. And that's when the idea struck that there must be a market in the UK for this kind of high-quality traditional lager. It took a few years to get the funding, premises, equipment, and knowledge in place, but the project eventually gained momentum, and we've just celebrated our 10th anniversary. So our brewing philosophy, first, we like to keep it simple. That means, for example, sticking to the Reinheitsgebot and the 4 traditional ingredients, nothing like tonka beans or whiskey barrels or blood orange or anything that isn't normally found in a lager. We like to keep things as fresh as possible. So, for example, our kegs are filled from the lager tanks only when they're ordered. We use the highest quality ingredients. So, for example, we import our base malt from Germany, which, of course, is more expensive, but for this style of beer, it really is the best. And finally, flavor always takes priority. So that means no filtering, finings, additives, or any other shortcuts that would improve clarity or shelf life if it's going to impact the flavor in any way. We usually have 6 or 7 beers available at any time, but the one that probably best represents what we're about is our Bock. When we were starting out, Camera's fatwa on kegs and lager gave us some headwinds. The stereotype, of course, being that lagers were light, bland, and fizzy. So I set out to brew a beer that was just the opposite. I was also keen to emphasize malt flavors, since intense hops was the fashion amongst craft brewers at the time. So our Bock is a 6.5% dark lager, which tastes like malted chocolate cherry melon toffee. And all this from only 2 malts and 1 hop, Hersbrucker, and our house yeast. I'm very proud that last year it was voted the best small pack beer in SIBA Wales and West region. Not too bad for a lager. Anyway, thanks for your attention. Cheers, Prost, and Yakida.
Well, there you go. Not your traditional Welshman at all.
No, from Ohio via Bamberg to North Wales.
to a farm at the end of a bumpy country lane.
It's mad, isn't it? What he's been doing for 10 years, he's been more than happy. It staggers me that you can still find people like this who are just doing it.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it, to think that there must be lots of other breweries like that who are there going about their business, making a living out of it, that we don't know about. And that's the great thing about this part of the podcast, because we can hopefully track these people down, really sing their praises and shine a bit of light on them, because they're going unnoticed.
I feel like we say every episode now, this is what we want to do, isn't it? This is brilliant. This, like, finding people like Eric and everyone else who's either out there doing it or is starting to do it. That's what we like.
And they're not just making one style of beer. You know, it's all sorts of weird and wonderful creations going on here. We love our craft beer, but if it wasn't for this podcast, we wouldn't have found this guy.
No.
Because we wouldn't have been going out there searching for him, would we?
The only way I think this would have happened is if I'd have, I don't know, been on holiday in the area, maybe.
Well, we love Wales. We go to Wales a lot, and I've never come across him. and before we go somewhere, I'll often sort of do a little recce, a little search. And
100%.
Never been on. Anyway, what is it like now it's warmed up a bit?
It's really good. I'm very much enjoying it. I said it smelt strong. I don't know if it really tastes of 6.5. There's a hint of it at the end, but you'd go through it very quickly. The maltiness of it is now just coming through as well a bit because it's warming up.
Is it a case of, like Eric was saying, it's more malt forward than hop forward? It's the malts that are coming through.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. But there's not really any sort of hop flavors going on, I would say. It's very much a malt driven beer. But it shows what can be done with malt as well, because I don't know about you, but when I think of it, if I think, oh, beer's malty and it's not, say, a traditional ale, then I'm a bit like, I don't know if this has worked. But in certain styles, it should be what you taste.
Yeah, exactly. I think because of all these big hazy yellow beers these days, we've forgotten what malt can do and what malt can bring to a beer.
I don't know if you might well have seen it, actually. There's a real sort of side, but just what you said there was a picture on Facebook in one of the beer groups of sort of a person starting out on it and tasting all the hazy stuff and then tasting pastry sours. Did you see this?
Yep.
Yeah, and then at the end they climb a hill and it goes tasting beer but tastes like beer, which I think this is very accurate when you apply it to this beer.
I think this is a massive thumbs up for you, isn't it? And I can see that you're probably going to go back and get more beer. In fact, how many beers did you get? Because you put in a little order, didn't you?
I did. So Eric says he normally has about 6 or so on the go. At the moment, I've just had that. I've got the anniversary bock. There's a low alcohol lager, a pilsner, a Hefeweizen. I think that's my 4 that I got from him. But I'll definitely keep an eye on what's coming out and what other ones he does, because he's done a California style lager, a dry hop pilsner, a golden lager. Whenever they're around, I'll be getting them.
Bringing endorsement, that's what we love, isn't it? Brilliant.
If you like lager, if you're a fan of, say, Braybrook or Don Zoco, you'll love that.
And if you're a fan of the German beers as well.
Yeah, definitely.
You'll be all over it. Right, well, okay. I am going to Yorkshire for my brew to me, to West Yorkshire, and I have got a beer from Two Rocks Brewing. This is a 330ml can,
Nice can,
which contains a 2.5% dry hopped pale, which weighs in, if you're trying to be good in the new year, at only 70 calories. 70 calories.
We're in February now, mate. It's all gone. It's all gone to pot.
Yeah,
everyone's resolutions are in the bin.
Yeah, maybe. But if you're still clinging on a little bit and you want something with a bit of alcohol, but it's not too bad for you. I mean, we'll often sit down, have an evening, have a beer, me and Lisa, and share cans. Share this. It's 35 calories each. It's like water. Hopefully it won't taste like water, though. And I don't think so, because I've seen some really nice reviews of this beer.
Is this the USP for Two Rocks? This is what isn't just you've got the 2.5% beer. This is what they do.
This is what they do. And have you noticed now, these lower alcohol beers, we've talked about it a lot, they're so much better than they used to be. But now there's so much variety as well. There's loads of breweries out there making really good low ABV beers.
To the point now that when they phone it in, it really shows now. There was a point where everyone was doing them and none of them were good. But now, if it's one of those beers from a couple of years ago, it really stands out because, as you say, people are putting so much time and effort into these low alcohol beers that look at that. You would never know that's 2.5 looking at it.
Nice.
I'd also credit where it's due. That's a great pull.
That's not bad, is it, for me?
That's a good pull. That.
A lot of flavour in there. That's not your watery, low ABV beer you might have expected a little while ago. That is kicking some real flavour.
If you were given that blind, would you know?
Well, also when I tell you it's vegan and gluten-friendly as well.
Nice.
So, for want of a better phrase, it does tick every box. Anyone can have it. If you gave me that and said, oh, here's a 4% pale, I wouldn't be saying, no, that's 2.5%. No, that is packing all the punch. Because they're only 330s and they're only 70 calories, I brought 2 cans up. Kind of defeats the object.
Completely undermining the point. But
the hops involved here are Mosaic and Centennial. So I was thinking there's a sort of chance it could be quite bitter, a bit too bitter. And there was Mosaic in the dry hop as well, but not bitter at all, actually, really well balanced. Really nice. Sort of pineapple-y at the front with the fruit, and then a bit of bitterness towards the end, but just enough to want to make you smash through it all in about 3 mouthfuls.
Which you're well on your way to doing.
Just going back in again, that fruitiness now really shining through. Yeah, that's good.
So it's about, not trying to be derogatory to Two Rocks, but is this the kind of beer then that you would have in the fridge, end of a shift, grab 2 cans, put it into 1 glass, done?
Sometimes you have a beer, there's so much going on, it's quite complex, and that's great, of course, we want that, but also sometimes you just want to go to the fridge, open the fridge, get a beer and a packet of crisps or some nuts or some cheese or whatever and just drink it and feel refreshed. And yeah, that works on every level for me. Yeah, let's pass you over to Marco, who makes the beer, founded the company, runs the company, and he'll tell you all about what they do up there in Skipton.
Hi, Daftaboutcraft. This is Marco Celente here, founder of Two Rocks. Thanks for inviting me to contribute to the show. So a little bit about Two Rocks. So Two Rocks was founded by myself during the summer of 2020, whilst on furlough from my job at the time, which was a sales manager of Ilkley Brewery. So anyone that works in the industry knows when we were all put on furlough, there were long days, long weeks and months to kind of contemplate what was going on, I guess. So with my particular situation, I was at home with my son, who was 3 at the time. My son's autistic, so he can't be in the house for more than 10 minutes at a time before he starts getting on top of the sideboard and pulling stuff off the wall. So we're like, right, get in the backpack and away we go. And we went up on the moors, the Cow and Calf Rocks in Ilkley, which is what Two Rocks is named after. And believe me, David, we covered every single blade of grass on those moors during that summer. Up at 9, back at 6 for some tea, with some stop-offs in between. As anyone knows, that goes for a nice walk, especially in the sun. Something that really kind of rounds that off is a nice cold beer. So the alcohol-free beers at the time weren't quite doing it for me. The beers that I enjoy drinking, the 5-6% IPAs, were not suitable for a day with my son. So that was where the idea for Two Rocks came. Something where you didn't feel like you were missing out, but had all the punch, all the things that you recognise from a full strength beer, but at a fraction of the strength. And from there it was evenings, weekends, doing little bits and bats, and finally went live at the start of 2023. And yeah, been trading about 13-14 months since then. The beer itself is a 2.5% dry hopped pale ale. And we're a single beer business, just focusing getting that one beer out there. So it's Mosaic and Centennial hops combined in the brew, and then we heavily dry hop again with Mosaic to give it that big punchy aroma that you'd expect from a big American West Coast IPA. Availability-wise, best places to find us if you're local to West Yorkshire. We've got some fantastic key accounts like the Hermit Pub in Burley Woodhead. We are available online at our website www.tworocks.beer, and you can also find us from the good fellas over at Tap Door. Anyone wants any more information, you can email me, happy to chat. My email address is marco@tworocks.uk. And yeah, any fans out there, give me a shout. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the beers. Take care. Bye.
What Marco told you there is he likes to keep it simple. Why make it complicated if you don't have to? And that's what that is. It's like you touched on before, Dave. You go to the fridge, you open it, throw it down, tastes great, it's fruity, it's what pale should be, but it's low ABV, gluten, friendly, vegan, friendly. Yeah, I can't see much wrong with that. He was kind enough to send me 12 cans of it, and I'm really chuffed about that.
And it's worth saying, actually, because I'm just on his website while we're chatting. So 12 cans would set you back under £30.
Yeah. There will be some coming to you, by the way. I mean, it's good, but I think I'd need to give you a few of them. I think keeping all 12 for myself, maybe taking the mick just a little bit.
I was just thinking, I could see this being the one that's inside the fridge door, and I sort of go to the fridge, Bob's down or whatever, and it's like, right, I can have a couple of beers tonight. This is going to be the first beer that goes in. Don't think about it. I just want a beer in me. Done. Right, now I don't mind having something that I need to think about a bit more, but I just want that. I want a nice beer to start me off. It sounds like this is the beer for that.
And that's in no way being derogatory at all.
No, 100%.
To find a beer that has got great flavour and is really easy to drink, that's the sort of benchmark. That's what you want to create, and that's what this is. So he's achieved everything he set out to do with this beer.
Well, it seems like we've had 2 real winners on Brew to Me this time, then.
Absolutely. We're getting good at this. We're getting good at finding winners. Right, well, it's a time of the podcast where we have a chat with somebody, and we're heading to South Wales now to speak to Craig and Ian, and they're the two people behind Axeljack Brewery. How you doing, guys?
Very well, thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us. Now, we're not going to pretend we know anything about you because we know very little.
Yes, it's sort of done the cursory research of yourselves on your website, which gives us a bit of an idea, but obviously we'd rather hear it from source. So how did Axeljack Brewery come about, and how long have you been going?
Well, we've been brewing since August of last year, 2023. Craig will speak for himself, and he's been brewing for 7 or 8 years now, and was previously with another South Wales brewery, Bang On Brewery in Bridgend. It all happened very quickly. In February, we started talking about it, and I think I was doubtful then that anything would come of that discussion. But by August, we were brewing. So,
Crikey, that all happened a bit quick then.
Yes, it did.
The discussion came about sort of flippantly around the table drinking beer one evening. The opportunity arose by sheer coincidence, and we took it. That's basically all I can say about the matter.
So how do you two know each other then? You knew each other before beer, I'm going to guess.
Father-in-law. I'm married to his daughter.
Oh, right, okay. So you know each other quite well then.
It's a family affair.
Oh, nice.
That's the Axeljack. So Ian's surname's Axelson and mine's Jackson, so Axeljack.
Oh, now I was going to ask you, now you've answered the question. So how do you find that then, working together, being family? There's pros and cons, I imagine.
Well, we've known each other a lot of years.
Running a business and a brewery together.
It's a different dimension to the relationship. And as with anything in life, there's a learning curve. And our learning curve was very steep and very short. And, inevitably there has to be compromise and there has to be give and take. But I think if that's your attitude and you can bring that work style to the partnership, then everything's fine.
So when you sort of had this conversation over some beers about should we start a brewery, and it's ended up happening, did you sort of share the same visions for what you wanted the brewery to become?
Yeah, we're very fortunate there. We had the same sort of vision and design ideas, taste ideas. Yeah, I mean, we've got our individual roles in the business as well. We both do it all, but we both have areas that we are stronger in than others.
Yeah, with only two of us in the business, if Craig's brewing, I'm there with him. If we're out on the road or we're making some marketing decisions about the website or social media or whatever it might be, then Craig's with me as well. But in terms of identified roles, Craig is the brewer, and I try to help out with everything else.
If I was to say what makes an Axeljack beer, then so what's the sort of the vision behind the beer? What did you both want to achieve when putting these beers out?
Flavour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good quality.
Heritage beers, heritage flavours that would appeal both to a more traditional palate as well as craft. So we wanted a core range, which I think we've got, with a craft lager, a golden or amber ale, a pale ale, and a premium pilsner. And we wanted that foundation from which we could then experiment with some of the more fashionable flavors that consumers and the market is trending with now.
With one eye on the future then, so you're going to have the more traditional core range, and then how often are you going to brew the more crafty type beers, do you think?
Well, we've already got a couple out there. You nearly got a sour.
I love sours. We just noticed.
Did you not?
We just noticed.
Did you? I didn't know if you sent that one.
No, I did. I held the sour back because I wanted to just see what we were actually really about.
Yeah, sure.
And at the moment, there's numerous different recipes already written.
There are 7 beers out there at the moment.
That's some going, actually, considering you've not been going very long.
Since August last year, yes.
Yeah, that's all the brewing, the canning, the marketing, the labelling. We've done it all since August, and had Christmas in between, obviously, as well.
And everything's in house. Our canning lines in house. Everything is in house. Nothing goes out.
And how are you finding it? Is it more difficult than you imagined, or just like you imagined, or easier even? I I doubt it's going to be easier.
The process is hard work when there's only two of you. We do bring in my grandson, Craig, and my daughter's son. Well, both of Craig's sons come in. They're 19 and 16, and that's really helpful just to have the extra hands, particularly on the canning and labeling lines. But if they're not there, we'll do it. We'll just get on with it. It's a labor of love. I love the process. I remember my first commercial brew, and it's just fascinating. The whole process from the mash tun to the kettle. If it's your thing, it's more than a hobby. It is a labor of love.
And I think it's quite addictive as well. Once you get into it and you find you enjoy it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's hard to step away from it, isn't it?
It is, and I think that Craig, with his culinary background, his years as a chef, his approach is, I won't say unique, but it brings a fresh perspective to the craft. You can have your microbiology degrees, and you can understand the enzymes and what's going on at every stage of the process. But, it doesn't mean to say that the beer is going to hit the spot in flavor terms.
Yeah.
And I think that Craig's approach is very much that the ingredients must produce a good quality outcome.
I think I work very hard. It's almost, I do it back to front almost. I know what the outcome should be before I've made it.
You know what you want to achieve.
But yeah, I'm looking at what it should smell like and appearance before it's even hit the mash tun, before it even started.
That does feel a good way to talk about the beers themselves, which we'll do in 2 seconds. But the other thing I just wanted to touch on before we get going is your very eco-friendly approach. There's eco-friendly, but you're going to the nth degree here, like packaging tape, for example, and everything.
Everything. The packaging tape is paper with a water dissolvable glue because it's important and will increasingly be important in determining consumer choices. People don't just talk about environmental considerations or sustainability. It's being put into practice increasingly, and to ignore it is foolish, frankly. It's no good talking the talk if you don't walk the walk.
Yeah, and you've got to future-proof what you do as well.
Yes, very much so. So from the sourcing of grain right the way through, as Dave says, to the packaging tape, everything is sustainable.
We should talk about the beers as well.
We're sort of both sipping away here while you're talking. So I've got the Welsh Pale Ale on the go. And Dave, which one have you got?
I have gone for the Pilsner, but the limited edition Pilsner, the
Penny Garda.
Penny Garda. Yes, I didn't want to butcher a Welsh pronunciation for you.
I'm not a big fan of traditional beers, if I'm honest with you. I like the more hop forward beers, but this is very nice. This is it's traditional, but it's still very, very drinkable for somebody like me. That's one of our core beers, and that's why I describe them as being heritage stroke craft. Yeah, absolutely. You get the element of tradition, but also you get the element of craft in there as well. Yeah, and that really comes across. What about with you, Dave?
It's probably a similar story, actually, with the Penny Garda. It does taste like quite a traditional Pilsner, but then it's also not quite. It's not the light cut. You sort of in the beer's description, it's not that light colour German Pilsner, which can be a bit bready or very crisp and clean. It's got a bit more depth of flavour to it than that, and it pours sort of a bit darker in the can, but at the same time, it pours very clear, and it also tastes very clear, if that makes sense. My guess is there's quite a lot of attention to detail goes into your water.
Very much so.
We're very blessed with water over here in Wales, coming from the Brecon Beacons. And yeah, I mean, that beer hasn't been filtered even, what you're drinking there.
So what are your influences then when it comes to beer? What do you drink when you're not drinking your own beer?
Oh, well, a bit like yourself, really. All the way from the outrageous ones. What was I drinking last week? It was a 12.5% Cloudwater.
Okay, nice.
Messy, but yeah, really nice.
Yeah, well, I can imagine.
But then also, I love a cider as well.
We had a couple of cans on Saturday night, didn't we? That we'd acquired of other people's, and they were very, very nice beers. They were dippers and some West Coast IPAs. So very good beers.
Would you be looking to go into that sort of territory at some point?
Our next beer is very likely to be our take on a West Coast IPA.
Oh wow! Okay, you're really going for it with all these styles.
Yeah. Well, I suppose.
Trying to tick all the boxes.
It's not eclectic. It's more really what we like and where we think the market is.
The thing about the market these days, well, it depends which part of the market you're after.
Yes, yes.
Because it's very different, as I'm sure you know.
Yes.
But you get people like us who are sort of tickers and we like to drink everything. Although we're changing, aren't we, Dave? We're not as bad as we were. We used to be quite bad. We'll have a beer and we'll only drink it once, tick it off on tap, move on to the next one. But we're finding our attitude is changing a bit, to be honest. And I don't know whether we're representative of a lot of people in craft beer. I'm not sure.
I think we're going that way because I think, you've spoken yourselves about how you want to have that core range. The core range is designed for repeat business, isn't it? So if you can get that right, then people like us will keep coming back. So
well, very, very much so. And certainly in the retail outlets where the 440ml cans are being stocked, we're already seeing that repeat business. So it's not just one-off first try or gift box sales. People are coming back for it. And part of the intention of the core range, the 4 beers in the core range, was also trade sales, which we're also seeing growing very healthily at the moment. And, a lot of bars will take the stronger 6.5 ABV and higher beers. But a lot of the bars, when we talk to them with that kind of strength, say, well, no, we're not, we don't really want to serve something that strong in here.
Yeah.
So we deliberately kept at the lower end of the ABV sale for the keg sales.
I think as well, just with your range, it's quite I would say it's quite a bold statement having, I know mine's limited edition, but essentially of your 7 beers, 3 are lagers. That's quite, within brewing circles, lager, everyone thinks it's simple, but it's not.
And lager has a bad press. It's maligned quite wrongly by certain drinking groups for reasons that I completely understand, and there are different agendas out there. But lager is a European beer, and it's been around for hundreds of years, and there are some thunderously good Belgian and German lagers out there. So it's not to be frowned on, lager.
No, 100%. And as this is warming up slightly, I'm getting a bit more flavour of it coming through now, because it's at first it's out of the fridge, nice and cold and refreshing, and now just that flavour profile is just starting to come through a bit more as it warms up.
It does have a large flavour profile. Yes,
I brought 2 cans from the fridge. The one's already gone. I've drunk it, and now you're making me want to open a Pilsner as well, which I also brought. So I'm probably going to have to.
I think the Pilsner's very playful myself. It's probably one of my favourites what I've made so far as Axel Jack, with the flavour profile and the careful carbonation as well. It was everything about that drink was very carefully designed to hit the palate as you're finding it now, David. If you've got it at the right temperature, the flavour in there is immense. And the yeast as well was a really important choice. I used the German yeast, which I'd sought to, again, get as much flavour from that as I could.
Such a simple list of ingredients, really, water, malts, hops and yeast, and yet it's infinite in terms of the combinations of the flavour profiles you get out of it. Craig and I often sit and talk and say, it's great that so much focus is on hops, and, people are now beginning to be able to determine hops with the nose and what's in the beer. But we hear so little talked about the malts and the yeast in the context of the overall ingredient mix, and they make such a fundamental difference.
It's funny you should say that, because me and Dave were talking about this just recently. It's really overlooked in beer, isn't it?
Yes, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all hops. All the talk is hops.
It's all hops.
Wherever you go at the moment, you go into any of these craft bars, and you could, if they've got a dozen taps on, 8 of them have got the same hop profile.
Yes, we've had that experience.
And it's like, oh, come on, guys. I've had 8 beers and they all taste the same from different breweries. Don't get me wrong. They're not all bad at all. Some of them are really, really good.
Do you think there's a danger of craft beer becoming a little bit boring? Because, like you just said, wherever you go, say you go into a place and there's a dozen taps, and 3/4 of them are going to be hazy pales, aren't they? Some combination of Simcoe, Galaxy, Mosaic, all the rest,
Yeah.
Maybe we're going to see a shift at some point away from those beers, and when malt does become more important again to drinkers.
Well, I certainly think that, as with most things, there are trends, and there are trend followers, and trends are not permanent. And I think there will be shifts within the craft market. And I think the overuse of a handful of hops, as Craig said, it is noticeable. And also, if it's in a craft bar, what the owners of that bar want to sell also has an influence on what's being served. But certainly, I've been into a bar recently with Craig and been served a non-alcoholic, a 6% ABV roughly, and an 8.5% ABV, and they were all the same hop. There's all from different brewers, but they were all the same hop.
Yeah,
so
hop fatigue, I think, is something we are going to come across more and more.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Moving forward, then, obviously, it's not taken long to get out there brewing beers. You've already got a beer club on the website if people want to subscribe. There's merchandise. You seem to be covering all the bases. Where do you want to be in August this year? It's not,
Well, we want to still be here. That's number one.
Well, that's actually
important.
Yeah,
that's a really key point. Do you worry about that given the current climate?
Yes,
it's hard.
I think you'd not be telling the truth if you answered no. Yeah, of course, and not just for us. I think certainly in your first year of trading. Yeah, it's a struggle. You have to really get it right, and for us, get it right quickly. But within the craft brewing industry, I'm sure it's a concern for most brewers.
Every day you see some of the horrible news somewhere, and it must be quite sort of demotivating when you see well-established companies encountering problems.
Yeah. The bigger you are, the higher your costs are.
Yeah,
I understand how you get into trouble. We're small, we're manageable, and we're quite happy to stay this size. For the foreseeable future. We don't have aspirations to follow the pathway that have been taken by other companies that started out as craft, who perhaps it would be a little difficult to describe them as craft now.
I think we know who you're talking about there, yeah.
Yeah, yes, indeed. But, and the craft market, they sort of tend to be countercultural and independent, and we're trying to stay with that. I mean, we've looked at supermarkets and we've had a conversation with at least one, and it's not right for us. It's the independent and smaller craft retail outlets that are right for us, particularly if they have tap rooms attached to the bottle shop. That's the sort of outlet that we're looking for, or the larger craft bars with 10 or 15 craft kegs on.
So do you see yourself, I'm going to preempt what Dave was about to say, do you see yourself opening a tap room at some point? Did I get it right, Dave?
You did.
You did. You did. Well,
I mean, it's the logical step, isn't it? Because
yeah, of course it is.
That's how you're going to maximise your revenues and maximise your profits, isn't it?
Yeah, we love the craft bottle shops and the craft tap rooms.
Yes.
We don't want anything too big, but obviously that would be the ideal way to go, especially selling our own beer. But yeah, I think that's definitely on the cards for the future.
The way you lot are going, you'll have it open by the summer.
If only.
No. I don't think I have that in me anymore. I think once was enough.
Yeah, well, that's
yeah.
Let's have a year off. Let's just have a year of brewing this year, just selling some beer.
I was going to say, would you be in an area where you're based where a tap room would work? Have you sort of got the catchment and the footfall, or
no? It wouldn't perhaps be. Well, it would be close to the area that we're brewing in.
So it wouldn't be where the brewery is, but it'd be
close.
Where I live, it would possibly be close. But we're about 25 miles from the brewery, so we're a little bit closer to Cardiff than what I am. So this area could definitely hold one.
And would you be the only one if so?
I wish no. There's a couple of really good. One of which has 3 outlets and a brewery, but there's room for more. There's always room for more, isn't there?
Yeah. I think there is always room for more, actually, because when you're fanatics like us, you'll just go to all of them.
Absolutely.
But we saw last episode, didn't we, Dave, with Salford? There's a small little area there, and it's supporting lots of breweries. If you build it, they will come. If you all can do something slightly different.
Yes,
absolutely. Well, that's like the situation in Bermondsey in southeast London, isn't it? Of course. Yeah.
But also, actually, I think I was going to say, if you're fanatics, you will go. I think more and more, you don't have to be fanatical, actually. People like that variety, and they will go. Normal people will go from place to place and go and experience lots of different venues.
But, I don't see the craft bars just full of young people. I see them full of a mix.
Yeah, absolutely. More and more, in fact.
Yeah.
We had this conversation on a recent episode. I do wonder if when we say craft beer this, craft beer that, we're doing ourselves a disservice because you're kind of marginalising what you do a little bit. And, we called ourselves a craft beer podcast, but more and more I think it should just be a beer podcast because you're fully inclusive. You want everybody to come in and try your beers, don't you?
We do, and I take your point, but it's just a handy shorthand.
We've found this problem, haven't we? Because we're calling ourselves craft beer, which we are craft beer.
But do you scare some people with that term?
Well, and also we put ourselves in the wrong place as well, because some people go, "That's not as craft as what I was expecting it to be."
The minute you say,
"Where's all your hops?"
Yeah, people have certain expectations, don't they? That's very true.
Yeah.
But it's still craft beer, isn't it? Because you have crafted it, and you don't have have to craft it with all the hops.
Correct.
And this is just sort of what perhaps the next change needs to be.
We've had lots of conversations with potential customers along these lines, and because the can isn't, it doesn't include fluorescent colours and graffiti style graphics. That's one of the objections that we've encountered, and yet put us on the shelf and see how clearly delineated we are.
Yeah,
because you can see us far better than you can.
Yeah, you can see your cans amongst the graffiti style cans.
Correct. And then the other one is, as Craig said, that we're a little bit, the core range is a little bit too traditional for some of the really, let's call them right wing craft bottle shops. But that's very much personal preference. You have to live with that.
I've got to say, I've opened this Pilsner. That is superb. Tremendous.
Thank you.
I did not expect that. Really, really good. Got like kind of a honey quality to it. It's amazing.
Yes.
You carry on talking amongst yourselves while I carry on drinking. It's really, really, really good. Impressive. Yeah, I mean, for me, that certainly is craft beer. It's exactly what craft beer should be.
Yes.
Well, I really appreciate that comment.
It's superb.
From you, Per, it's I'm finished now. I'm out of here.
I guess you don't get a chance to see people drinking your beer very often, do you?
Occasionally, we pop into one or two of the outlets that have it on tap.
Oh, do you sort of hide and watch people?
Kind of.
Horrible.
Yeah. Yes.
I had a gentleman describing to me how the golden ale tasted the other day, and I should try a pint of it, which was a nice comment, obviously. But I stood there like, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. I'll try one.
So, looking on the flip side of that, have you ever inadvertently received negative feedback?
Yes,
it happens, doesn't it?
And what's that like?
It used to hurt me. First started brewing, especially that Untapped. It's like
it's vicious, isn't it?
It can be really vicious. And then if you look on the flip side of it, you have to ignore it. I was a chef for a lot of years, and people sometimes used to say, "Oh, I didn't like that." Well, if you don't like it, you don't like it. There's nothing I can do about it. But if the other 20 people like it, then crack on. So I try not to. Try not to respond.
We don't ignore it. Actually, we don't
ignore it.
We do. We never respond. No, but we do sit and talk about it, don't we?
Which is why when you get good feedback as well, it's like a pat on the shoulder. You're doing your job properly. But you can't please everybody. You're never going to please everybody. And once you get through that in your head, you're okay.
You've got to have that right mindset, haven't you? And not take it personally. I think when a lot of people criticise beers on platforms like Untapped, they forget that there's an actual real person at the end of this process reading that comment.
Yeah, it's keyboard warriors.
Warriors, yeah.
And, that brewer may have had a really horrible day. He could be going through anything. And you read some negative review just because somebody doesn't like that particular style of beer.
If we get a bad review, which we have had, I tend to have a look at what else they've liked or disliked.
Yeah, that's a really good thing.
And then also see who they happen to like. And that gives you an indication then as well.
Yes.
Because in areas, you always get people who follow one brewery or follow another brewery, a local barman they happen to like, and the barman doesn't happen to like so and so. It happens in all walks of life.
Yeah, I think sometimes beer is just like a scaled down version of how life is and how people are,
Yes,
absolutely. I never write a comment on anybody.
Exactly.
I've got Untapped myself, but I don't use it for that reason, because there's, like I say, like you just said, you don't need to put a negative comment on somebody just because you don't particularly like it. Yeah, it does work both ways, doesn't it? Yeah, if you do like something, it's nice to say to somebody, that's really banging, that is.
Well, that Pilsner is, so yeah, great.
Appreciate it.
I think when I first got an Untapped, and before we probably even started the podcast, I was quite scathing at times with people. And then once you do this, you sort of realise that there's people behind it. And now, if I have something that might not be to my taste, I can still appreciate that it's been brewed well. Just because it doesn't suit me doesn't mean it's a bad beer.
Yeah.
It's just there's something for everyone. And I think it'd be better if perhaps people would take that approach. Or if you don't like it, you don't have to leave a review. You can just tick it off and move on.
Well, I often think that all beers are like Marmite, really. Yeah. So, you're either for it or it's not for you.
Yeah, I mean, you'll hear us say on the podcast sometimes, this beer's been well brewed. We're just not fans of it because it just doesn't suit our taste.
Yeah.
And that's the honest truth, isn't it? Somebody out there will find it nice.
Oh, very much. We get good reviews and bad reviews on the same beer. It's just taste. I mean, providing the beer, the beer's good quality, then it's a matter of taste.
This is it. I think there's always room to not stick the boot in, but you can point out if something hasn't been well brewed or if it is completely not delivering what it's supposed to.
Yes.
And that's fair criticism, I think. But if it does what it's supposed to, but it's just not for you, then
yeah, exactly.
That's our biggest bugbear, when a beer says it's one thing and doesn't fulfill the brief. That's annoying. But
Well, that is, I can imagine.
Right, so let's fast forward 2 years' time. Where would you like the brewery to be in 2 years' time?
Cool. Where the brewery is now is great. We want the beers to continue to progress, upscale slightly. The ideal world is to make a good living, pump out plenty of beer, and
do you think
have a happy day?
Well, exactly. Do you think you can make it work from a financial point of view by sticking largely in your area, or do you need to go further afield?
We're already moving afield. Only today we got stocked in a bottle shop in Twickenham.
Oh, wow.
We're on draft in Bermondsey.
That's tremendous.
So we are further afield.
Excellent.
But our primary market is Wales.
Yeah,
it has to be,
and that's where you want it to stay.
Not well. We want to be. We would like to be strong in Wales because it's brewed in Wales, and
of course,
culturally, it qualifies as a Welsh beer, and it would be foolish not to try to gain market share in Wales, But as Craig says, we're not aspiring to open bars on the Las Vegas Strip or sell 25% of the business to AB InBev or anything like that. We're quite happy to we're quite happy to be craft brewers, whatever that means. If that means a doubling of production, well, so be it. We'd have to make some investment in brewery kit, but at the moment we've probably got 2 years in us at the same brewery with the same kit. If we could increase the output to that level where we need to be working it that hard, then that would be wonderful for us, because it means that the beer would really be becoming popular and we'd be growing.
But, that's ideally where we want to be in 2 years.
But 2 years is not long. 7 months have gone by in a
flash,
blink of an eye at the moment.
Oh, it's a very exciting journey, isn't it? I mean, it seems to me you've achieved quite a lot in a very short amount of time already.
Yes, I would agree with that. We have.
Was the intention. Once the plan started to roll, it was, this is what Far does used to do for a living, run businesses. And that's what he does well. He's got behind the business in the engine room and got it going before we started.
I get the impression that you make a great team and that you know...
See, the roles are clearly defined, can't you?
Yeah, you know what is required to run a business, because a lot of the time you see this, somebody can make great beer, but it doesn't mean they can run a great business.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. And you can't just expect people to find you.
Yeah.
Not in the beginning and not in the short term. You've got to really roll your sleeves up and get out there and get your beer out there and get people trying it, tasting it. A lot of our days are with the back of the car packed with samples, and we're just out and about.
Yeah, nothing like banging on doors, is there?
No.
No, it only works, doesn't it? It does work.
Yeah.
Bang on the right doors,
Yeah,
it'll
definitely.
work for you. So, right, if our listeners want to get hold of your beers, what is the best way for them to do it?
We're on all
Either
the
way.
platforms, the website.
Social media, Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, phone me up. I really don't mind.
Day or night, get in
Yeah,
touch.
absolutely.
And if
I've
you want,
usually got some in the car.
and if you're putting in an order, make sure you put this Pilsner on the order. 'Cause it's awesome, really, really.
I
good.
hope you've got enough stock of it to keep going as this limited edition one. I think it might have to be a bit of a rebrew.
Well, I thought it was a good brew. Like I say, I put that one together just before Christmas, obviously, as they all were, but with myself in mind. The lager side of things is definitely from Far's side of life. My wife likes a lager. They're both European-y. So it has to be right, else I get told off.
Oh, you've got the perfect mix there, haven't you? You've got people telling you all the right things.
My family name is Axelsson, so from Denmark. So to me, beer is lager.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
And I know about it if I get it wrong.
I bet, yeah. Look, I've really enjoyed that conversation, Dave. That was really fascinating.
Well, likewise, really enjoyed it.
And we wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you very much.
We'll speak to you again at some point in the future and see where you are.
Thank you.
Yeah, do so, definitely.
It'd be really interesting to see your progress.
Well, thanks very much for your time.
Super. Thank you for the opportunity.
This is Daft About Craft.
Tried and tested time now. This is where we look back at what we've been drinking since our last episode, and then we let you know which was our favourite of all the beers we've had. And have you had much, Dave, since the last episode?
Not as much as I'd had going into that
Previous one,
January
yeah.
episode where I was spoilt for choice almost. This time, Varvar's Midnight Velvet
Oh, okay.
barrel-aged version.
Haven't heard of Varvar
Weighing-
for a while.
Yeah, Varvar, unfortunately, sort of, I think, got very much derailed by the war in Ukraine. I know they lost one of their members of staff. I remember this beer I got with a couple of other ones of theirs. But I think I talked about it at the time on the podcast. Pub in Woodbridge got some of their beers in to sort of show solidarity, and all sales were going to help. They got a load of bottles of this, and I'm probably going back now a good 18 months.
I remember.
It's been sat in the fridge, and I thought, no, I'm gonna try this. So Midnight Velvet, it was a 330 bottle, but it weighs in at 14.5%. Imperial Stout. The whiskey barrel aging came through, but it was so smooth, really dark. It's probably one of those, I don't know how easy it is to get hold of anymore, but just a really good example of a barrel-aged stout. Like, you could tell it had been in a barrel, not just sort of heard a whisper about a barrel. Like,
That's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really, really good, and it was perfect as well, split, even at 330. A whole bottle of it, I'd have been on my backside. Like it.
Who did you split it with?
I split it with my wife's mum's husband.
Ah, good.
That makes
Okay,
sense.
right. Yeah.
Stepdad, if you will.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking there's not that many people who would just say, yeah, I'll have a 14.5% stout with you.
Years of conditioning.
You teach
He trusts me to not sort of put him away with stuff because, funnily enough, and I won't name names, but we had that beer because we split it and it was quite early on in proceedings. We thought, I had another stout, much lower percentage stout knocking around. I said, I'll go get this and we'll just see if it had to get sink poured. It was dreadful. I'm not going to name names, but it was appalling, and it just showed how good that was by comparison.
Yeah, you can't just shove a beer in a barrel and think, oh, it's going to be great. There's a lot of scope for it to go wrong.
Definitely.
Right, well, my tried and tested kind of follows on from the end of the last podcast because I went to Edinburgh, as you remember, and had a really nice beer at Innis and Gunn. And we went back next day and picked up a couple of bottles to bring home. Ended up smashing one of them. But the one we didn't smash was their Creek 2023. This is the third time they've brewed this, so we're looking at Scottish cherries here. So you've heard of your Creek Boone type of...
Yeah, I wanted to ask you what the spelling of this creek was, because I thought, is this creek as in Creek Boone, or is it creek as in a river?
No, it's Creek as in Creek Boone, so Kriek. And yeah, it's basically Creek Boone, but Scotland's version, with cherries picked 20 minutes away from the brewery. It's just amazing, just perfect.
I'm looking at it now. It looks I mean, it looks lovely.
Oh, and it really was. I shared the 330ml bottle with Lisa. We both looked at each other and said, wow, this is awesome. Got back on the website, saw they'd still got some. So we haven't put an order in yet, but we're going to get a few more of those. And they're brewed in quite small numbers, in quite a small batch, I think, from what I can tell. And I also wonder if there's any of the previous iterations of it knocking around somewhere, because I'd love to try it if there is. But it was just perfect, really, really good. Sour cherries, sort of tartness, everything you would want it to be, it was. It ticked every box.
I must just say as well, like, there's some really fascinating stuff on it. There's the Vanishing Point 07, which I assume is the 7th iteration of this Imperial Stout, which is a collaboration with the Glenlivet. 11% Imperial Stout, double cask matured for a year. The cherry beer, which you've sort of spoken about and said is really decent. 12 Moons, which is a lager which comes in a wine bottle size, but that's also been lagered for a year. Really, really interesting stuff, and it's not like horribly priced either. Like,
it's really well priced. And all this goes to show you that, while we love, as we've said, championing smaller breweries, some of the ones who we perceive to be bigger are still making interesting stuff which warrants our attention.
Yeah, definitely.
You're listening to Dave B and Dave D on Daft About Craft.
Now, about a year ago, we had a bonus episode featuring Anthony Barrett of Twisted Wheel Brewing from Chorley. Now, Twisted Wheel had closed down, but Ant brought them back. He resurrected the name, got them back up and running, was making beers, and since then, he's regularly appeared on the podcast with latest updates, and he's back again with the very latest news on Twisted Wheel, and it's all change.
Hi guys, hope all is well. Quite a bit's changed since I last updated you. Twisted Wheel has now been sold. I sold it to my new employer. Basically, keeping on top of the business and everything else was getting a bit much for one person. So I got offered a job and decided to sell the brand. We are now based on a hop farm in Kent called Hookins Hops, and we brew on the same site as McCann's Brewery. McCann's has a tap room. Like I say, it's on the hop farm. Lovely views across the hop fields. We have 4 shepherd's huts that you can come and stay in, and then obviously have food and drink in the tap room, so it's really good. We've had a couple of new beers come out recently, First Light and Last Light. One's a double IPA, one's an IPA, and basically they use the exact same hop bill, which is Vic Secret, Galaxy and Eldorado. Basically the exact same beer, the only difference is ABV, so when you try them side by side, you should be able to tell which one's which, but we have made it quite hard for you. We've also gone into partnership with Tapdoor, who are going to fulfill all our web orders. So if you go to twistedwheelbrewco.co.uk, and also if you go to tapdoor.com, you can go on there, look at the breweries they have, and you can put up a mix box or whatever it is you want. They've got some cracking breweries on the site as well. Anyway, gents, I'll leave you with that and hopefully speak to you soon.
Hello, Dave. I know you Daftaboutcrafters. It's Andy from Hops at Home. I hope you're all really well. Just an update from us. So new in over the last few weeks, we've added some Holy Goat bottles, 2 sours and an export stout, 6 Vault City cans, including their new Sweet Shop Sour, easy for me to say, range, which has Parma Violet, Fizzy Watermelon and some Raspberry and Blueberry bottle sour, which is the strong ABV, and it's blue, electric blue, so don't miss out on that if you like blue beer and sour beer. And Vault City, of course. So new brew York cans. We've got double fruited juice Forsyth. There's Tom Coco returning. And also a Valentine's themed sour. Siren beers. A new Wylam. New World Pale. And also some full circle beers, including the dialed down version of Looper. Table Looper, no less. Which was brewed in collab, I think, with Sheep and Wolves Clothing, who specialise in low ABV beers. As many of you know, we're an online-only bottle shop, so we're available at hydrologycraftbeer.co.uk or hopsathome.co.uk, Hops at Home on all social medias, and also you get 10% off your first order if you sign up to our mailer. That mailer goes out every Sunday night, ahead of deliveries later in the week, and it details all the new beers, as well as any special offers or pre-orders, etc. that we need to let you guys know about.
Daftaboutcraft.
It's time to welcome Sam from the Copper Beach Brewing Company back with us. And, Sam is the brewer's wife. She's one half of Copper Beach, and she appears in every episode to tell us what it's like as the wife of somebody who runs a brewery and the pressures involved in doing what they do. Welcome, Sam.
Hello, thanks for having me.
That's okay. What were you going to talk to us about today?
Well, I thought today we could have a little chat about social media.
Okay.
It's such a big thing in our lives these days, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's so important, but it's also trying to keep on top of all the trends in social media. It's all a bit of a hassle, really, isn't it?
It's got so much more advanced since, even since we started the brewery, but definitely since it, started however many years ago we all started using it. But like you say, it's like, you used to be able to just post a photo, it'd get a few likes, and that'd really be enough. But then all of a sudden you had to become a photographer because the photos needed to look really professional. And then that wasn't enough. You had to become a videographer, and you had to start doing clips and videos. And
I remember in the good old days of COVID, you could take a picture of a can in a glass and you get 100 likes straight off on Instagram. No sweat. Doesn't work these days.
Saying that, though, when we were in those times, everyone was just sitting at home scrolling social media, weren't they?
They were, yeah, I guess so.
So I guess there was more traffic to social media because, the rest of life wasn't happening quite so much. But yeah, I think as a business, when you look at social media, it is this hugely important part of getting your name out there, getting brand awareness, drawing people in, and just sharing a little bit of your life along with the business. Because I think what we've learned over time is that people really want to buy from people, don't they?
We see that more and more. It's the people aspect that is so important in all of this.
People like to feel connected to what they're purchasing.
And I think people want to see a little bit of the people behind the business these days, don't they?
Definitely. But then you have this kind of how much is too much, and what is relevant to the business and what isn't, and how much that isn't relevant to the business do people want to see. So I think in the beginning we had quite a nice balance, but the algorithm changes and what Instagram expects from you changes. And I'm solely talking about Instagram here because that is our sort of main platform.
I think, the days of Twitter or X as it is now, that's useless for getting your message out there about your product. That doesn't work.
It's not a marketing tool, is it?
That's for people who want to have a rant about
anything, everything.
Yeah, anything and everything. Promoting your goods on there doesn't work.
And I think the other thing is TikTok's obviously coming through as being this big platform, and it is incredible. Like some of the young people out there today that are literally making careers out of sharing things on TikTok and getting these brand deals and things like that. It's crazy how much money can be made out of that, but also at the ripe old age of 36, you feel almost like you've kind of missed that.
Do you reckon if you could go back in time and be young, well, say you're not old, but
I'm definitely not old,
but be really young again, you'd think, I could do something with TikTok here, I could make some money out of this?
Oh, I would say but then at the same time, there are people on there who are millennials or older, and they're doing it as well. I don't know. I just think a lot of social media is confidence. And that's
true.
One thing that I think half of our team struggles with.
Well, I know one half that doesn't.
Who might that be?
Yeah, so do you find it stressful then, trying to think of different things to do on social media to engage your audience?
Yeah, it is not stressful. It's just you have to feel really inspired. And I think a lot of the time when your life is just so sort of full of other things, social media is like a full-time job, and I don't have a room for another full-time job, let alone and I think the problem with Instagram is not the problem, but it requires consistency that sometimes businesses can't offer unless you're employing somebody to do your social media, but then that removes that personalised element. So it's definitely a hard balance to get right. We're trying this year to be a bit more active and try some new things. So we're going to do a couple of new features, low commitment, like once a month, but just to get our faces out there a bit more, much to Dan's dismay.
It is a tricky one because you kind of think, who's interested in seeing our mugs on Instagram?
And that is the problem. You kind of think, well, we've got this idea, we'll do this. And then when me and Dan were sitting having a planning meeting, I said, well, what do you stop and look at catches your attention? What would you sit and watch for 5 minutes? Because our attention spans, because of Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, have become less and less and less and less. And I remember doing a social media course a few years ago, and at that point the social media attention span was 6 seconds. Right. And I actually think it's probably less than that now, because that was a few years ago. And I see it in my 2-year-old. You know, I very rarely let her have YouTube or anything like that, but if she does, they're on to the next thing. They've watched, you know, half a minute of something, and then it's like, I want that one, I want that one, I want that one. And we've become this culture of if your attention isn't captured in a very short space of time, literal seconds, then people have moved on. And how do you keep up with that?
I wish we knew the answer. It'd be great, wouldn't it?
Some people do. Some people have got a great formula.
But it changes so much. You've got to be really agile and keep changing what you do to keep on top of algorithms and what have you, and to keep people engaged. And when you're running a brewery, you've got a room with some tanks in and all the brewing stuff, and you've got some beer. How can you make that consistently interesting for people to catch their attention?
It is the same thing,
because nothing really changes.
I think not, you know, unless he has one of his disastrous days. And
I mean, they're obviously comedy gold when that happens.
But you don't want that to be happening every week.
No.
The other thing I've noticed with it is more so with influencers, but I think it can be said of some of the bigger brewing companies. Almost once they get to a point where they're very popular and people are very interested, it almost turns a tide and people start getting irritated by them. Then they're getting too big for their boots. And it's almost like this. Someone told me this saying once: when the underdog starts winning, people stop cheering. And it's almost like when somebody starts to get that success, what have people got to cheer for anymore? Because they've got it. So they're moving on to the next underdog, I suppose. So it's a very complicated thing. And I think if you're too active on there, or you're very active on there, you open yourself up to all of the negativity as well.
And you also become wallpaper. When people see you too much, they think, oh, yeah, they are again, go away. And they're straight past you. You're not holding their engagement.
But they're not posting regularly enough is not favourable to the algorithm, and then you don't get shown to as many accounts as if you are a regular poster.
It is amazing, actually. We follow a lot of people, a lot of breweries on Instagram, and every now and again I'll think, oh, I haven't seen anything from them for a bit, and I'll go and search them out, and they've been posting, but we just haven't seen any of that content. Yeah. It's so difficult.
And why is that, I suppose?
Yeah.
Because it will only show you a certain percentage of the people that you follow based on your interactions everywhere on the internet, which is scary.
I was looking at our Instagram stats the other day, and we've got, I don't know, best part of 3,000 followers, but our reach was some tiny proportion of those 3,000 people.
And if you post a story, you might have 3,000 followers and only 250 see your story.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So it's tricky. It's a very difficult thing to navigate, and I think because it is so crucial to getting people to share your products on social media is one of the best forms of free advertisement, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
You could go on about this for hours, literally hours, couldn't you? Because it's so complicated. And
so what goodies have you got lined up for us on Instagram then?
So we did film a video. We wanted to start a new feature. Now, Dan named this What's Up Beaches.
Okay.
We were thinking of all the puns.
Yeah.
And now he's horrified.
Actually,
I liked it. It's funny. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek. It's, a bit... He's now horrified that we've rolled with it. But it's where we're just going to get one of our beers each month, sit down, have a drink. And it's almost... The idea was that we were just showcasing the beer, but it became almost a bit of an opportunity for me to interview Dan, because he's not all that confident with sort of, talking on social media. He's getting there. He's really trying.
Hold on. You're not starting your own sort of sliding into the podcast.
Don't worry. We are not stepping on your toes anytime soon. No, it's just more of a purely from an interest point of view for myself, because I don't actually really know that much about brewing. I'm like, what hops are in it? And I was asking him about the dry hopping process, because there's all these buzzwords in brewing that you hear all the time. What does it actually mean? A
lot of stuff you hear and you think, we talk about stuff. We'll talk about a dipper or a tipper and dry hopping and all, and you think, hold on a minute. Sometimes we need to rein it in, because there will be people listening who don't know what on earth we're talking about here.
Exactly. It's all quite technical.
And so there's a fine line to assuming a certain amount of knowledge and too much knowledge. You've got to appeal to everybody with how you're talking, haven't you?
It's another fine balance, isn't it? Making it sort of, so that you're not teaching your granny how to suck eggs, but also not making it so inaccessible to people who just don't understand the kind of language and the jargon. So, we were talking about double dry hopping, and I was sort of like, what does it mean? And I learned a few things that I didn't know. So hopefully that will really speak to, some of our customers, people who aren't in the brewing industry, who might have always had the same questions but had no one to ask. So I think that's probably how that will evolve.
And for every new beer that comes out, you've got something else to talk about as well.
Yeah, true. It's just the heartache of filming it, editing it, posting it and getting 7 likes.
Well, this is it, you see. People don't realise how long, unless you do it, how long these things take.
Yeah.
Recording a little video is just the first bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the same with the podcast, and all the editing and what it takes so long.
Once you sit down and edit it and you realise that actually the quality's not that great, the sound in this bit doesn't sound the best, but you can't go back and redo it. It's done. So you have to rely on people accepting a little bit of rough around the edges, which we most definitely are anyway. So
however it is, we're learning more about you, and that's what you want to get out there, isn't it? You want people to know more about you and what you do. Anyway, talking of new beers, can you tell us about your new beer that's going to be coming out?
I don't know, can I?
I don't know.
Am I allowed to?
I don't know.
Are we talking about the...
We are, yeah.
So he's attempting his first... Is it a sour? It's a type of sour.
Yeah, it's a sour, yeah. It's a goes.
Yeah. It's going to be a raspberry mojito. No, that's a lie. It's going to be a strawberry mojito inspired goes. Yeah, one of Dan's cocktails. Anything sugary and sweet and that little hint of mint. Don't know how it's going to go.
It's exciting, though, because it's something completely different, isn't it?
Totally different. He's never attempted anything like this before. And with every beer, the first one is always the tinkering starting point, isn't it? And then I'm sure he will tinker with it as time goes on. But yeah, if you're a goes fan or a sour fan, keep an eye out for that. I don't know when it's going to be released, though. It'll probably be more like March, April time.
Yeah, I think he's brewing it in a few weeks.
Yeah, brewing it in a couple of weeks. So yeah, I reckon March, April time.
Just as it starts to warm up, that'd be nice.
It's quite a different direction for us to go in.
Yeah. Well, I've been trying to get him to do a sour for ages and ages and ages.
And I've been trying to stop him for ages because I'm not a fan.
And no, it'll be fine. It'll be good. It does sound really exciting. And he was telling me about how much mint is going into it and all this.
Yeah, you just hope that the flavours do complement and balance and come through the way you want them to. And it's a big risk brewing it on the size kit and having the beer and being like, well, that's it. What you've got is what you've got.
Didn't help when I told him I hate mint in beer. Yeah, well, mint is a funny one in beer. I'm sure it will work.
You just don't want it to taste like you've just brushed your teeth.
Exactly,
and
that's the thing.
A can of beer.
Yes, because that's horrible.
It also needs to be there. It has to be there. So we'll see. You can let us know.
So if people want to follow you on Instagram and find out about you and Dan and the brewery and your new beers, where do they go to?
We are at the CB Brew Co.
It's me, Andy from Hops at Home, back again with an exclusive discount. Shh, don't tell anybody, for goodness sake. Now listen in, this is an absolute belter. So we're giving you a lot of cracking offer of up to 30% off up until the 29th of Feb 2024. Code DAFT20 gets you 20% off orders over £50. DAFT25 gets you 25% off orders over £75. And DAFT30 gets you 30% off orders over £100. But Andy, that's like 30 quid off when I spend 100 quid. Aye, and that is. Actually, it's 60 quid off when you spend 200 quid. What? Alright, so that's it from us. So listen, when this podcast's finished, you know what to do. Hi, Georgie Craft Beer, UK. Get yourself on. Get yourself using the discount codes. Come on now. Honestly, it's cracking off of this, man. I'm telling you, it'll be out of your door as well. You don't even have to go out. Right, I'll leave you with that. Right, love you loads. Draw. Bye.
And now it's time for Hype or Tripe.
Dave, how do you feel about being taken on the Oregon Trail?
Well, my initial reaction was that sounds very Partridge, but the second thing is yes, I would love to go on there, but I'd like to go on there with a twist, please.
I think we can do that for you. It's Hype or Tripe, the part of the podcast that we really enjoy. We don't do it every episode these days unless there's a beer that really demands we do it. And what we do is we get said hype beer and see if it lives up to the hype. Now this time there's not one, there's not two, but there's 3 beers in this series we're looking at today. And we've even got a special little helper for this part of the podcast, Dave.
Yes, I apologise in advance if there are various baby noises, because usually when we record, Bob is fast asleep, but we're recording a little bit earlier today just so we're on top of things, and that means that Bob is very much awake and currently eyeballing me, wondering why on earth I've got a microphone and a pair of headphones on.
Yeah, I can imagine that must be a bit weird for him. In a minute when you've got a glass in one hand and a microphone in the other, it'll be even more weird.
He'll then feel it's a bit more normal because he'll see me with a glass in my hand. So
True. That is true. So what beers are we looking at then? Do you want to tell everybody?
Well, firstly, I think it's worth pointing out, you say we don't do this all the time, but this episode, there were actually quite a few candidates, weren't there?
Yeah, there were actually, yeah. We were a bit sport for choice. Sometimes we sort of struggle to find something that fits in with what we want to do. But this time there was a few. There was a triple IPA from Polly's, wasn't there, which caught our eye?
Yes, having reviewed on this section, we did their Quint IPA, I believe, many episodes ago.
Oh, goodness, yeah, that was a long time ago, wasn't it? Blimey. And there was also some single hop beers come out from Siren, but they're mystery hop beers, so they don't tell you what it is. So that could have been quite good fun, also could have been very embarrassing, which is probably why we didn't go down that route.
That's true. And then there was also Beak, released 3 standalone sort of IPAs, the Strand series. They could have easily qualified. There's been some track beers, which everyone's been very excited about. They probably fell just a little bit too early on from when we would be releasing. So, as you alluded to, we've ended up on the Oregon Trail, courtesy of Elusive Brewing. And Oregon Trail is their signature beer, really. It's probably, if you say Elusive, it'd be the beer you'd think of, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Not only is it Elusive Brewing's flagship beer, but it's also probably one of the best-known craft West Coast IPAs in the country, I think, probably, isn't it? It's fair enough to say.
It's regarded, I believe, by plenty of people as the UK's best offering for a West Coast IPA. But what Andy has done here is he's done 3 versions of Oregon Trail, but he's amped them up. So each one is a double IPA. They're all 8%. There's the standard double Oregon Trail, which we're not going to do.
No, we're going to go for the 2 slightly more out there ones.
Yeah. I'm having double Midnight Oregon Trail, which is a double West Coast black IPA, and you are having
West Coast double red IPA. Funny enough, we mentioned on the last episode when we were talking to Dan from Hideaway that red IPAs are becoming more and more popular because we drank one of his, and here we are with another one.
They really are as well, I think, just before we get started, because recently a couple of orders I've placed, red IPA is within the range now. It does feel at the moment it's quite a trendy style.
It does, yeah. Yeah, more and more you sort of go out and you're not surprised to see a red IPA on tap, whereas at one time what's that? But yeah, and I'm all for it. If
I like a red IPA, I do. Yeah. I like that sort of rye taste.
Oh, okay. The West Coast signature flavour is there with quite a bit of resinous tones coming through, quite bitter, but then there's sort of sweetness from the malts as well.
Mine probably goes the other way around, you know. Mine smells increasingly like a black IPA, so that malty but a bit sweet, and it tastes like that to start, and then at the end, the West Coast bitterness really kicks in.
What about percentage-wise? Would you say it tastes it's 8%?
Not quite. I wouldn't peg it in the 5s. I'd say it's maybe a 6 something.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'd say, about 6%. So each of these has been brewed with the same hops. Nothing has changed with the hop bill, has it?
So we've got Simcoe, Chinook and Columbus.
With Chinook and Columbus obviously doing the bittering there.
Yeah, and so the description says, as we mentioned, the hops, they deliver the resinous profile of a citrus undertone. The bitterness helps to balance the light caramel of the malts. I'd probably get a bit more than light caramel, I would say, but I would expect I might over you because of the version I'm having. What do you think of it? What do you think of your one?
I don't dislike it.
Would you? Yeah, I think we might be in the same camp here. I don't dislike it, but a West Coast black IPA, I thought this was why I sort of wanted to do it. I'd never pick this.
No.
This could be on tap. This could be in a bottle shop. I'd never pick it up or order it.
No, I think I'm in the same camp. If it wasn't for this section that we're doing now on the podcast, I wouldn't be drinking it. Would I have it again? No, I have had it. Probably not. But that's not to say it's bad. It's just that I've had it once and there's nothing that's drawing me back into trying it again.
If you like West Coast IPAs and you like black IPAs, you should try this. If you like Oregon Trail, you should try this. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. I don't think this is quite to my style, but that doesn't mean it tastes bad. It's doing exactly what it's telling me it should do, which is always a criticism of my level of sort of hype beers and whatnot. You know, if you say you're going to do this, do it. It does that. It does exactly what it says. It's perhaps just not for my palate, I would say. I like it fine, but I only like it fine. I'm not going to rave about it.
Well, I think we both decided that we like it. It's fine.
Yep.
How much did you pay for yours, and where did you get them from?
So I got mine direct from source, and each can on Elusive's website costs just over £7. £7.30. And I got all three. So I got all three for a cost of £21.90.
Good value for money?
I don't know if I feel I'm drinking a £7 beer in the climate that we are in now. You know, I think now when I'm looking at beer prices sort of as a wider thing, a lot of the breweries that we talk to now are at the lower end because they wouldn't have the profile and they're not necessarily able or want to charge that much. But then if I was, say, on a bigger brewer's website, I'd be looking at their beers in the £5 to £6 bracket. And then if it was something big and strong, etc., then really the sky's the limit. It's whatever they want to charge and whatever I'd feel comfortable paying, I guess.
When you're sort of into the £7-8 bracket now, I'm thinking you're almost into double-digit ABV stout territory.
Yes. Although these are double IPAs. These are 8%. Would I? I think if certain breweries had a double IPA and it was £7 something, I'd probably buy it.
Right. Okay.
It sounds bad, but this was more of a necessity buy because we wanted to do it for the.
Because of what we did. For context, I didn't buy it direct, and I paid $5.99 a can,
which feels far more reasonable. Yeah. So that's.
It's an interesting topic, actually, isn't it? We buy a lot of beer direct from breweries these days, and usually you get the best deal when you go straight to the brewery, don't you? You just do. Of course you do.
I don't think there's any way around it. That's disappointing. It should, for me, be cheapest at source.
I think so. I don't know what. I'd love to explore this a little bit more at some point. We've seen little instances before, haven't we, where we talked about it, and you sort of say, "Oh, you know, that's slightly cheaper on someone's website than it is on their own," and you should think, "Well, I wonder why that is." But they're slightly cheaper, which is 20 pence, 50 pence. Yeah, but when it's £1.30 odd.
It adds up, doesn't it? Because on that basis, if you'd got all three...
You could have bought a can of something else for what you saved.
Exactly.
Thus helping another brewery.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm not criticising anybody. I'm just very interested in how that works and why a middleman can sell it cheaper.
As you say, it's not a knock on... This is just one example. It's not a direct knock on Elusive. No. It's disappointing. Like, I won't lie. Like, no one likes paying more than someone else for the same thing. But at the same time, I'm sure there is a reasonable explanation for it. It'd just probably be good to know what that is.
Back to the beers. Do you think it was worth creating these different versions of Oregon Trail? Or should it just stay as it is, a flagship West Coast?
It's a bit of a cop-out, but I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that, which sounds really bad when I'm co-hosting a podcast.
Well, neither of us are West Coast fanatics, are we, for a start?
We've talked about Titanic Plum Porter on this podcast before, because we both really love it. It's like one of the best cask beers you can get, as long as it's been looked after the same as any cask beer. And then come Christmas, there is an imperial version of it available, isn't there?
The Grand Reserve. And I think we've both concluded that we prefer the standard version rather than the Grand Reserve.
Yeah. And I would say there was an argument as to that beer did not need to be made. And I feel better qualified to talk about that because I've had plenty of Plum Porter. I know how much I like it. And then I had the Grand Reserve and I thought, no, I prefer the standard. Because I don't have enough West Coast IPAs or even black IPAs for that matter, I don't know whether this needed to be done. I think it's an interesting exercise. I'll probably feel a little bit more qualified once I've had the red and then the standard. But I will say, probably just go into what we've been talking about, the theme of this as a whole. I've got them there. I don't quite know when I'm going to get around to drinking them. Do you know what I mean? They're not going to jump off the shelf for me.
I'm drinking the red one. I've got the standard double. I think I'm going to go away and drink that when we finish the podcast because I'm not sure when else.
Yes, that's probably...
I will want to drink it.
It's a good shout. It sounds like we've been very negative about it, and I don't mean to come across as that. We've tried something that's a bit different for us, and it's not really changed my opinion as to why I don't drink that many West Coast IPAs or that many black IPAs. There's nothing wrong with it, and as I said earlier, if you like either of those styles and you want to see them combined, or you've drunk similar beers and you liked it and you want another one, you'll probably love it. It's just not for me.
Funny enough, I'm actually coming round to drinking more West Coast. I had one the other night. I wasn't forced to have it. I actually picked it out of the fridge and had it and really enjoyed it. But that's just a standard West Coast. I think, given that West Coasts are a little bit divisive because of the bitterness involved in them, I think probably leave as is and don't play too much with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind a West Coast on occasion, but it is really on occasion. I know what they do. I appreciate what they can do. They're not quite for me. But that's not to say I can't appreciate this is well done, and it is. It's fine. It's perfectly well done.
Yeah, and I think for us to say this is tripe would be...
No, that's not fair.
That's a step too far, because it isn't. It clearly isn't. They're very well-brewed beers. They're just not on this occasion for us.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You can't please everyone all the time.
Well, that is just about it for this episode of Daftaboutcraft. Thanks a lot for listening. We'll be back in the first week of March with episode 57 and a very exciting announcement. So we'll see you then.
Daft About Craft, the craft beer podcast.